Hi everybody, this is Applied Linguistics, the Basics, part 2. So last time we left off at slide number 9, and now we'll continue and carry on from where we left. So we move to slide number 10, which is titled Applied Linguistics, the 20th Century. Language teaching came into its own as a profession in the 20th century. The whole foundation on contemporary language teaching was developed during the early part of the 20th century as applied linguists and others sought to develop principles and procedures for the design of teaching methods and materials, drawing on the developing fields of linguistics and psychology to support a succession of proposals for the more effective and theoretically sound teaching methods. The grammar translation method. Whereas today English is the world's most widely studied foreign language, 500 years ago it was Latin, for it was the dominant language of education, commerce, religion, and government in the Western world. The political changes in Europe gave French, Italian, and English importance. Thus, Latin was displaced as a language of spoken and written communication. Latin was diminished from a living language to a subject in the school curriculum. Children in grammar school were given a rigorous introduction to Latin grammar, which was taught through rote learning of grammar rules, study of conjugations, translations, and writing parallel bilingual texts and dialogue. Continuing on with the grammar translation method, or the GTM for short, the principal characteristics of GTM were: the goal of foreign language study is to learn a language in order to read its literature or in order to benefit from the mental discipline and intellectual development. GTM, or the grammar translation method, approaches language study through a detailed analysis of its grammar rules, followed by translation sentences and texts into the target language. This view consists of memorizing rules and facts to understand the morphology and syntax. The first language is maintained as the reference system in the acquisition of the second language. So, the goal of foreign language study is to learn, according to the GTM, is to learn a language in order to read its literature or in order to benefit from the mental discipline and intellectual development. GTM, or the grammar translation method, approaches language study through a detailed analysis of its grammar rules. The grammar rules, of course, of the target language, followed by translation, followed by sentences and texts into the target language. This view consists of memorizing rules and facts to understand the morphology and syntax. The first language is maintained as the reference system in the acquisition of the second language. Continuing on with the characteristics of the grammar translation method. Reading and writing are the major focus. Little or no systematic attention is paid to speaking or listening. Vocabulary selection is based solely on the reading text used, and words are taught through bilingual word lists, dictionary study, and memorization. The sentence is the basic unit of teaching and language practice. The lesson is devoted to translating sentences into the target language with a focus on that sentence. So reading and writing are the major focus. Little or no systematic attention is paid to speaking or listening. Vocabulary selection is based solely on the reading texts used. Words are taught through bilingual word lists. Dictionary study and memorization. The sentence is the basic unit of teaching and language practice. The lesson is devoted to translating sentences into the target language with a focus on that sentence. Continuing on with characteristics of the grammar translation method, accuracy is emphasized. Students are expected to attain high standards in translation. Grammar is taught deductively by the presentation of rules, then practiced through translation exercises. The student's native language is the medium of instruction. It is used to explain new items and to enable comparisons to be made between the foreign language and the student's native language. So I think this is clear. the one thing that may not be clear is deductive grammar teaching and inductive grammar teaching. And I need to revise that, because I think it would be very important, and it's very probable that we will have it on the written exam. Deductive grammar teaching is supposed to be when you give the students the rules first, and then you practice the rules with them through example sentences and exercises and stuff like that. Inductive grammar teaching, on the other hand, lets lets the students figure out the rules themselves. So if you are teaching, for example, the present simple, you give students sentences in which there are verbs that are conjugated in present simple, and through practicing on those exercises and through doing through asking them some questions about the sentences and the verbs specifically, they come to understand the rules of grammar inductively without being taught them explicitly at the beginning. Which is very different from deductive grammar teaching, and better. Inductive grammar teaching is better, has proved to be better by far than deductive grammar teaching. So, the reform movement. The spoken language's primary and language teaching should reflect an oral-based method. Now, we move from this traditional method to something to a reform. In the 20th century, the early 20th century, there happened a reform concerning language teaching. The GTM, or the grammar translation method, was replaced by other methods based on these findings and these facts about human language. Human language is spoken primarily, therefore language teaching should reflect an oral-based method. There are around 3,000 languages in the world, and there is no one language that is solely written. All languages are spoken. There are some who have writing systems and some who don't, but you will never find a language that is not spoken. Therefore, language, and of course before, when we were just evolving, before we had writing systems for any language, the first language, the proto-language that developed in the human species first, was spoken primarily, and then after some time we developed characters, alphabets, and we started writing. That's why, based on this fact, language teaching should focus more on oral production than on written production. The findings of phonetics should be applied to teaching and to teacher training. Learners should hear the language first, before seeing it in written forms. Words should be presented in sentences, and sentences should be practiced in meaningful context, that is, grammar should be taught inductively, as opposed to the grammar translation method, which just, tackled words in isolation, as we can see here. Vocabulary selection is based only on reading, and words are told through words. So there is no context for the students to have them memorize the meaning of, or get used to the meaning of the words being taught. Translation should be avoided except to check comprehension. That's another thing that changed, and have other direct method, the audiolingual method. Behavioralism, we have the decline of audiolingualism, we have communicative language teaching, we have Krashen's views, we have conclusion. So these are approaches to language teaching. So approaches, and we should read them, and this is it. This is the second part of the master's program, which is English language teaching. We have applied linguistics and English language teaching. So the master's program will be mainly on teaching learning. Yeah, so we'll continue later, and I hope this was helpful and useful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.